Welcome to Techiechap. In today's episode, I'm going to be taking a look at the latest Linux release from the Lubuntu team, that is Lubuntu 22.04. And I'm going to be installing it on this, which is a HP Micro Desktop PC. It's quite an old PC and it's running an i3 CPU with 4 GB of RAM. Let's find out how I got on after the intro. Okay, so here we are. This is the Lubuntu installer, and this is the screen that you will see when you boot up off a USB or DVD ROM, whatever you've decided to create your bootable media from. And you can download the ISO from the Lubuntu website. Link is in the YouTube description. So I'm going to press try or install Lubuntu, and we get a nice bird logo that comes up when it boots. Alright, here we are, and this is the live installer desktop. So all we do is we click on install Lubuntu 22.04, and I'm going to change to British English. So it's quite a nice installer screen. It's automatically picked my location, automatically picked my keyboard, and we are just going to erase this. You can see that I'm running the installer on a virtual box at the moment, so I can record the installer, but we will be looking at the live install on the i3 HP shortly. But just so that you can see how the installer works, I've installed it on this VM as well. Alright, so I'm just going to have it log in automatically, and so there, it's a very straightforward installer. Continue with installation. The Lubuntu installer is about to make changes to your disk in order to install Lubuntu 22.04. You will not be able to undo these changes. Install now. Yeah, why not? And off it goes. So very simple, straightforward install, and what we'll do is I'll let this install and we'll come back to that once it's finished. Here we are. This is the default desktop you find after installing Lubuntu 22.04, and as you can see, they have gone with the jellyfish theme, which is understandable given that this is based on Ubuntu Jammy Jellyfish. I wouldn't say this particular jellyfish is very jammy, but it's certainly quite a blue jellyfish, and the default theme in this release is certainly very blue and dark colours, so that's quite distinctive for Lubuntu as well. So quite nice clean presentation. If we take a look at, double click on computer up here, we will find ourselves the PC Man FM-QT. This is a QT app and lightweight file manager which has been built for LXQT. So the applications that come with this desktop are built using Qt development framework, which is all about cross-platform applications that are very, very light. However, that doesn't mean this lacks functionality. If we take a look at this, we can see here that you've got tools like Open Terminal, you can add bookmarks straight in here, and under View you can do things like Split View, which is really cool if you are copying from location to location. So that's really nice that those things are included in this file manager. You can really see that it's been purpose built. Thumbnail preview is also enabled by default as well, as you can see, although you don't get thumbnails on the folders themselves. You also are able to get to your application folders. These are the same application folders you will find listed here, and if we double click, you can go straight into things like the graphics application folder, and then double click on an application to launch that application. Now, anything that is built in Qt, such as this LX Image Qt image viewer, is going to run really fast, and the desktop itself runs in about 768 megabytes. However, because I'm running OBS and I'm recording 1920 by 1080 desktop, I currently am using 1.23 gig of the 3.75 gig of RAM available. And as you can see, my processors are sort of lurking around 40%, 40 to 45% as well on my little i3 4th gen. So it's running pretty well, to be honest. It certainly is running a lot faster than Windows 10 was when it was originally installed on this PC. So that's quite nice. It's quite nice that they have gone to the trouble of building certain Qt applications, or drawing those Qt applications in to make your experience a lot quicker. If we go down to the panel down here, you can see the normal things. If you click on time, you get your monthly calendar. You've got a clipper, I was going to say glipper, clipper it's got a Q in it, for managing your clipboard, which is great. Clicking on the volume icon will give you a basic up down volume, but it will also take you as a shortcut straight to the mixer, which is brilliant. I really like that the shortcut is there in the volume button. That makes a lot of sense for me. And we also have our removable media devices manager as well. Over here on the left we have show desktop, so if I want to quickly just get to the desktop, I can click on that. Everything gets minimized, and we have our file manager, the PC Man file manager, and we also have spaces, or desktops as it's called here, and of course that is where you have your different workspaces. And if you have something up, say here, and then we go to here, we've got desktop 2, which works really quickly and really nicely as well. Everything in here seems really quite functional, and certainly the applications that you get with this desktop environment are pretty slick. So as I mentioned before, anything that is built in and for LXQT, for example the file archiver, if I can get the word out properly, is really quite fast. Everything works super fast. Of course, when you start to branch out to other applications, you will find that they run a bit slower. So your default internet browser is Firefox, and certainly you will find that Firefox can appear a little bit sluggish on here. Here's Firefox now, and if we go to HTOP, let me just minimize that. If we go to HTOP, we can now see my CPUs are running close to 90% since I launched Firefox. But bear in mind that I do have OBS open at the same time, and this is only an i3 4th gen with 4 gig of RAM. So this really isn't a powerful machine, and yet I have OBS running and Firefox running together, and I'm able to browse the internet. So if I go to bbc.co.uk, and you'll see the BBC news come up. Again, if we go back to here and we look at the CPUs, you can see the CPUs are going pretty crazy, but the memory usage is still pretty acceptable. So really my bottleneck on here with regard to browsing using Firefox is all about the CPUs. If I look through the other applications, we have the full version of LibreOffice, and if I click on LibreOffice Writer, we can see it launches fairly rapidly. And if I have a look at the version, we are running 7.3.3.2. So again, a fairly recent version of LibreOffice, so that's quite acceptable. You can go ahead and install Flatpak support on here and download Flatpaks directly as well if you want to. The default application manager is Discover, which is of course what you get with KDE as well, and this will be where you would install extra applications that you might need, and certainly this is where I went and installed OBS. Of course, it's using, because it's based on Ubuntu, the apt package manager, so this is all. You could also drop down to terminal and use apt-get as well, and apt-get install. So it's all running in Discover. Discover is a pretty basic but good tool for finding applications with a GUI. Alright, so sound and video, I've already installed OBS Studio, but you do get Pulse Audio volume control and VLC media player as well by default. System tools, you've got Bluetooth support out of the box. You have the Muon package manager, which is pretty much like Synaptic package manager, where you can select certain applications as you go through and then batch install them, which is quite neat. And if we drop down to system tools again, here we go, we've got QTerminal drop down and QTerminal. So QTerminal supports tabs, which is quite nice. Again, it tells you a little bit about Qt, and so that's quite cool, and it's quite a nice terminal session manager. So we'll just close that down as well. Startup Disk Creator and something called Process Manager, which again is an application that's been built specifically in Qt, QPS 230, a visual process manager. I wouldn't say it's as good as HTOP, but it's quite nice as it is. Under Preferences, we have LXQT Settings, and if we go to the LXQT Configuration Center, we get quite a nice summary of everything that's in the preferences, window here. So this is a little bit what happens with some other Linux releases as well, like XFCE, for example. You find that they've bundled everything together in one place, which makes it feel like a little bit more of a control panel. So that's quite cool. And here you can change the appearance. So if I double click on appearance here, you've got quite a nice array of customization tools you can use here. You've got the LXQT theme. So if you want to change that, so for example, if we go for dark and apply that happens straight away, as you can see, and immediately that's changed the bottom bar here to a dark bottom bar, so that's pretty cool as well. Brightness is there if you need to change the brightness, which is quite nice. Desktop, if we click on that would be where you change your background, and the background's just changed via a generic file manager, and there's nothing really wrong with that. If I just click on that Lubuntu default and OK that, and you'll see the nice old style Lubuntu wallpaper there as well. So if you were to download wallpapers or whatever, then you could just drop those into that folder there, the wallpapers folder, or you could just browse and add them in manually as well. That's all quite cool. And you can also have slideshow wallpapers as well, which is quite nice. It's built into the desktop, so if you've got a bunch of photos that you like to scroll through, or to have scrolling through automatically whilst you're using your PC so it always looks fresh, then you can create a wallpaper folder, dump those photos or pictures into that folder and enable slideshow, and then you can choose the time that you want those pictures to rotate around in the background for you. So that's quite cool. You've also got visible shortcuts, which are these ones on the desktop here. Everything else is fairly self-explanatory. Monitor settings, you can see the type of monitor that you are running. I'm running on an Asus 1920 by 1080 screen here. Open box settings, it's worth knowing that these actual windows are running in open box, so you can change the look of these. So if I click on Lubuntu round, you can see this changes slightly. The icons have changed. So if I go back to Lubuntu Art, you can see the icons change there as well. And again, it's all happens instantly, which is quite cool. Alright, so if I close that, power management is quite useful if you are running this on an old laptop. You can manage the power from there. Window effects, if we double click on that, you can change the transparency of the windows and the menus, which is pretty nice. So if you want something that looks a little bit more modern with transparencies, you can do that as well. And you can choose how the fade behaves as things are fading behind the window that's active, for example. And also the rendering back end if you're going to use Xrender or OpenGL. System settings, you have additional drivers. So for example, this HP has a Broadcom wireless adapter in it. I haven't got that enabled at the moment because I've also got a network cable plugged into the back, and I'm happy with that for the time being. But this is also where if you had an Nvidia card, you would install that there or enable that there as well. Alternatives Configurator is a tool for having alternative applications to open when you run certain things like IP tables, for example. Apply for upgrade is for doing exactly what it says on the tin, which is to apply a full upgrade. Printers for adding printers, and software sources to manage your repositories where your software comes from. So all fairly straightforward stuff. So what do I think about Lubuntu 22.04? Is it any good? I would say actually, yeah, it is pretty good, particularly if you are running a low-end, low-spec PC. This PC was really struggling with Windows 10, and ever since I've installed Lubuntu on it, I'm now able to run things like OBS without a issue, and that's running really well. And all my devices that I've plugged in, my microphone, the keyboards, etc., have all detected absolutely fine, obviously because it's running on the Ubuntu base. So it's actually pretty decent, and I think if you are running this on a low-end desktop PC such as this one, or even a low-end laptop that maybe you have laying around not doing anything, then this could potentially revive that PC with a fairly decent experience. So I would definitely recommend Lubuntu 22.04 for low-end PCs. Definitely, it certainly seems to run really well, and also for Windows users that are migrating to Linux. If they want something to revive their old desktop PC, get it back up and running again, then Lubuntu may well be the choice for them, because it certainly does a great job of running in not a lot of memory and not a lot of CPU power. That's it for my review on Lubuntu. I would say I would give it probably 3 out of 5 stars, I would say, simply because it does what it says on the tin. It doesn't do any more than that, I would say. It doesn't do anything spectacular in that sense, but it certainly has revived this little HP i34 gig, and I can't ask for anything more than that, really. So I hope you've enjoyed that review, and if you have, then please click on like and subscribe, and hopefully see you next time. Thanks for watching.